And there we are. We knew that was going to come up some point. God is punishing the earth for same-sex marriage. And welcome back to Bible Bears, guys. I'm Ryder Cullison. So in the news, in the Ukraine, which may not interest you, but just listen to this story. There is a 91-year-old patriarch of one of the largest Ukrainian Christian Orthodox churches over there. His name is Patriarch Filaret, okay? So, he's in the hospital recently. But the real story here are some comments he made related to COVID back in March. So, he's 91. He's head of a huge church. They have millions and millions of followers. He's in a hospital. That's going to make news. But people are now bringing up the comments he made back in March because in an interview he had with a national news network over there, he said the pandemic was God's punishment for the sins of men, the sinfulness of humanity. Okay, so a little ironic that he now has COVID after saying COVID was God's punishment for basically the sins of humanity. Now, I don't know if God still sends plagues on the earth. I mean, obviously there is a precedent for this. If you've read anything in the Old Testament, you know that this is God's MO. He sent plagues on Egypt to torment Pharaoh so that he would set the Hebrew slaves free. He tormented Job to test him. Well, he allowed Satan to torment Job to test him. He sent a man, a king, Nebuchadnezzar, to Israel to take away 1/3 of the Jewish population back to Babylon to be slaves, and basically the others all died. Okay? So this is not unprecedented. Now, I don't necessarily subscribe to the belief that every natural disaster, earthquake, hurricane, tornado, or plague is God's wrath being poured out on the earth. We know where hurricanes land on our coasts, and yet we continue to build houses there. They get demolished, and then we go, well, build it back again. So I think a lot of the disaster in the world we bring upon ourselves through our own folly. I don't think God needs to urge those storms along. What's interesting about Patriarch Filaret's comments, and I'm going to repeat what he said. He said, the pandemic was God's punishment for the sins of men, the sinfulness of humanity. First of all, I mean, same-sex marriage. And there we are. We knew that was going to come up some point. God is punishing the earth for same-sex marriage. And we don't have to dig deep to understand what Patriarch Filaret is really saying here. God is punishing us for homosexuality. Or maybe what he was really trying to say in the beginning back in March was that God was only punishing homosexuals. But we know that's not true. My issue with this, of course, is, and I've stated this in my videos several times so far, he went right after homosexuality. God isn't punishing us for all the theft, all the greed, all the idolatry. He's not punishing us for all the torture in the world that goes on. He's certainly not punishing us for all the rape. He's not punishing us for all the murder. It's the same-sex marriage. That's got to be it. That's why he's so ticked off. Christians tend to vilify the sin they are least likely to commit. I might even add to that. They vilify the sin they're most vulnerable to because they don't want anybody else to figure out their sin. Maybe Patriarch Filaret has same-sex tendencies. How many Catholic priests do you think condemned homosexuality while they were molesting young children? Boys specifically. How many? A lot. And I'm not attacking the Catholic Church here. I'm attacking hypocrisy. And I'm so tired of Christians going after homosexuals. Now, I get it. I understand it is a sin. In the Bible, sin means any disobedience to God. God has put a prohibition on same-sex intimacy. He has reasons for that. It goes against his design. As I've stated before, this does not mean that God hates gay people any more than he despises and hates all idolaters or all blasphemers. Every one of us is guilty of blaspheming God. Do you think God likes that? Absolutely not. Every one of us has told a lie. He doesn't like liars either. Every one of us who has looked on our brother or sister with hatred in his heart has committed murder, or has looked on with lust on another woman, has committed adultery, and yet we keep spinning the same old record. Plagues and death and disease is all because God is punishing us for homosexuality. Every time we might build a bridge, even if it's made of matchsticks, you guys just set it on fire. I'm not condoning homosexuality. And I understand how many Christians don't like to see parades where gay people are allegedly celebrating their sin. I'm not sure they're celebrating their sexual persuasion. I think they're just celebrating the fact that they don't have to hide in a closet anymore, and that they have the same rights as everyone else. Now, I think they've pretty much always had the same rights, but I digress. We have to separate the act from the individual. And I think people on both sides, Christians and people from the LGBT community, need to do that. A lot of the criticism aimed at the LGBT community is not aimed at you, the individual. It's aimed at what you are doing. We may condemn a part of your lifestyle. A part of your lifestyle. We do not condemn all of who you are. Many of you might like Star Trek, or Marvel movies, or going to the beach, or going fishing, or eggplant parmesan, or watching the moon rise. There's so many other things that are part of who you are that we can enjoy. I don't agree with that part of your lifestyle. That doesn't mean I don't agree with you as an individual, and that's what Christians need to understand. We need to reach out and embrace our brothers and sisters in this community. Stop focusing on only their sin while you're ignoring yours. Stop badgering and just start a nice, loving conversation. Now, no surprise, there was an LGBT group in that country called Insight. They have launched a lawsuit. Listen, I'm not big on lawsuits. I mean, they make my eyes roll. Everyone's launching a lawsuit these days. Everyone's been launching lawsuits for years, but they're angry because this man, this patriarch, is so well respected, has so many followers, that by him saying that this plague, that homosexuals are somehow responsible for this plague, could incite violence. And you know what? They're right. Look at what's happening in the U.S. Takes nothing to incite violence. The mere whisper on the wind of some injustice, and we're out in the streets kicking cars and harassing people, shooting people in the head on the streets, igniting fires everywhere. I understand where they're coming from. We have to stop this hatred. Yes, they don't think they're sinning. We do think they're being disobedient. But all of us are disobedient. I don't hate all my neighbors who lie and blaspheme. I try to reach out to them. I try to understand them, but I certainly don't blame them for all of life's issues. I'm just trying to build a bridge here. I'm trying to build a bridge. I know many in the LGBT community don't agree with me, and I know many in the Christian community don't agree with me for reaching out to them. But we gotta start somewhere, and we gotta start building bridges. Okay? So let's get the word out. Give me a thumbs up, like, subscribe, share. Love for you to share this. God guys, and leave your comments below. I try to respond to all of them. As always, I love you and have a blessed week.